The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the March 28th, 2023 meeting. Is there any discussion about those minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Lori, would you please pull the committee?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, motion passes. The next item on the agenda is an update from our student representative. Good evening, Victoria.
Hi, everyone. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is how there have been a couple new lunch upgrades, which have been very popular. First, there was a make-your-own salad bar, which they put in at Bartlett, and there has been a very, very long line for this, all 2 weeks that it's been there, so that's very promising. And then they've also added a peanut butter and fluff sandwich along with the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, so that's a nice extra option too. And then the last meeting, I was asked to think of some recommendations to increase the half-day lunch, and I talked to some people, and some ideas that we came up with were giving a bagged lunch earlier, like when we come in at the cafeteria, rather than having it at the end of the day. And if we do have it at the end of the day, giving a couple more minutes to go down and get it, because right now it's being called down like 1 minute before the bell. So it doesn't really give students enough time to go and then get out when all the other students are leaving. So I think if we just leave a little bit more time, they'd be more willing to go down and get it so then they can leave at the same time as everybody else. And then the last thing is AP testing schedule. So the first week of May is when our AP tests start, and it's actually the first week, and the second week of May ends on May 10th. And there are both morning and afternoon sessions, and the morning session goes from about 8 to 11:30, and then the afternoon goes to about 3 o'clock.
Great. Thank you for your updates. Thanks for doing the recon on the half-day lunch information. So it's not so much the menu, it's more the logistics.
Yeah, it's just, I feel like there's not enough time for, because when you're in high school, you really just want to get out on the half day, so I feel like no one really wants to stay after to get the lunch afterwards.
Yep. Okay.
Good feedback, thank you.
Very, very helpful. Any questions or comments for Vicki? No? All right, well, thanks for your updates, Vicki. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Good evening, Mrs. Perangeli.
Good evening, thank you. First item I have for you tonight is a personnel update. We have 2 new hires. We have Santos Ortiz Perez, who is a Park Ave breakfast in the classroom. And then we have, is it Mary? Mary Walters, another additional Park Ave cafeteria worker. We had a couple of resignations all at one time at the last meeting. So unfortunately, we were pleased at how quickly we could fill them, and we've received applicants. So that worked out well. That's positive. The next item I have is new online enrollment. As you've heard in the past, that we are going to an online enrollment. Currently, the enrollment process is consolidated here at central office. Any new enrollees will come here and they go through the paperwork with Desiree or Lori if she's tied up. They go through it with Maria Santerre, who handles all the preschool enrollment. So there's a lot of activity out in and out of this office on a regular basis with enrollments. We are moving to an online portal, so parents will now have the ability to go online and upload all the documentation online, so they don't have to come in. They can scan, take pictures, and upload PDFs to the portal. Nurses can review online. Currently, nurses have to come over here and review during the summer months. They'll get notifications. It's all done in the background through the system. They've been working really hard at this. I know Desiree has been one of the point persons on this in our office, and she's put a lot of time and effort into organizing with Stacy Quilty, who handles all of our Power School information, and Maria. So they're talking about processes, how things are going to work, what they're going to look like, what kind of paper we need to keep, what kind of paper we don't need to keep, and how can we best streamline that. So they're pretty much ready to roll it out. We are starting with preschool registration to test the waters to see how that'll go. As packets get completed and filled out, then we can tweak and see what we need. And our hope is that it's going to be open to the district for our K enrollment on May 1st to have parents start to do that. We're also going to set up a kiosk out in the entryway, so if somebody doesn't have technology, and they come, they can use the computer, and we'll set it up so that it clears after every use, so nobody's information, prior information will be in there. But we'll make it accessible to the public should they need something. We have it. So I want to thank Desiree, Stacy, and Maria. They've done a lot of work on this and put a lot of time into it. And I'm sure there's going to be little bugs along the way, and it's a learning curve when you implement anything new. But I have no doubt they'll work through them, and it'll be a great process. Next item I have is website development. As you know, we've been working on a new website for some time. It's taken us much longer than we anticipated between the switching of companies, and then it took a long time to transition the data over from the old site to the new site. So I'm happy to say that that transition has finally completed with the data getting moved over. So now it's up to us to look at the data and start cleaning it up and getting trained on the system. Michelle Budney has been the point person on that. She's put a lot of effort in, and she's now working with the IT department. John O'Neill and his guys, they're training, so they'll have understanding of the systems, and they can work with staff and training on the new system. So we're continuing now to kind of look at our pages, how we want to format things, start cleaning things up. So hopefully, you know, in a month or so that we can go live, at least definitely for the summertime. I'm hoping that we'll be live and up with a new website, and it'll be more functional. We still got to work out process and procedure. I think that's something that's always been difficult on our side about the flow of information, who's responsible for putting what up, how often it needs to be put up. We have multiple systems where there's information, so it's just really how to streamline that process and make it flow so it's always updated, accurate, and usable. That's what you need it to be. You want it to have information that the public can come to and see that's fresh, that's not outdated. So I think, you know, as we work on the mechanics of the website and get that up, we also need to start taking a look at our internal processes and how we're functioning, and how, you know, what's the expectation of updating data for all of us, not, you know, for all users on the website. So we are working through that. Any questions so far? No? Okay, great. In other updates, I wanted to let you know that we received a Perkins grant in the amount of $10,000. This was put in by our Project Lead the Way team. It is going to cover Marketing 2 business plan along with some OSHA certifications and some funding for a DECA competition for our students. So nice job for them. It's been very active with staff applying for grants, especially on the Project Lead the Way side and our innovation pathways. They're really go-getters in wanting to get out there and get as much funding as they can, so we appreciate that. They also applied for a MyCap implementation and support grant. They received that in the amount of $4,500. Their goal is to buy customizable planners and some curriculum development for staff. So they're hoping these planners will help kids plan as they go through their course and their Project Lead the Way, with whiteboards in there that they can mark, and just making it functional to teach the kids the organizational skills as they advance through those programs. Next item we have, I'll let Ms. Barris talk to this. On April 3rd, we had a special education and a Title I annual meeting here, and I'm happy to say this room was full of people.
Thank you. Yes, it was. It was really a nice event. It was co-hosted by myself and Dr. Mackay, and open to just providing general information regarding our ELL program and special education programs. So we had, I want to say we had about maybe 5 or 6 families, many, like, you know, couples that came together, and that was nice. And we also had a really nice turnout from our ELL staff, and we had some special educators that came, you know, that wanted to also be there to support, you know, whatever questions parents had and so forth. But we had, you know, just a really cordial convening, and it was I think well received. The parents that came really seemed to be very, open in terms of asking questions. And, I felt like it was really successful for those who came. So we're hoping it's a great jumping off point for us to build momentum for our SPED pack and for our LPAC. So, but yeah, if you have any specific questions, I'll be happy to answer it. We prepared a PowerPoint for it, and if anyone wants to view it, you're welcome to, we can share that out. And basically went over all of the parent involvement points within the Title I program as well as special education. So, yeah, again, I think it was well received.
It's great. It's great to have some participation because there's been many times where we've had events and maybe you get one person to show up. So now to actually have families show up and wanting to participate and be interested in participating moving forward with the LPAC or special ed pack is great. So we're hoping to build off of that. So that's great news. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then next item I have is the case conference. So as you know, we don't have any principals here tonight. The 3 principals from the school and Dr. Mackay and Jill Chapdelaine are on their way to the Cape. They are at the case conference for a few days. That is a great conference, and I put the verbiage from the conference in there so you could see what it is. They'll be spending 2 days doing some real team experiences and looking at some implementation of some high priority initiatives. They were building packets of work to bring down with them. So I'm like, you're going to a conference, you shouldn't have to work that hard. But they were prepared to do some real team building and teamwork. And I'm really excited that they could do this together as a group. We need to do more of that and start building that collaboration across the district and bouncing ideas off of one another and that team building. So I can't wait to hear what they have to say to come back. I'm sure they'll come and present to you what they did. They were excited to get away for a couple days and spend that time at the conference. So that was great. And then I am continuing to meet biweekly with SSOS, so that's our state system-wide of support. I meet with them individually on my own, and they are there for coaching and guidance and support in any way that I need it. We talk about what's going on in the district, any initiatives we have, what we're thinking for the future. So I appreciate their support. They've been very helpful. I've even picked up the phone a couple of times and called them. They said, they've given me their cell numbers. If you have any questions, just reach out. They're available to talk, so I'm taking them up on that. I also met with my mentor last Friday, so that was good. I spent some time with her just reviewing things that have happened over the district, and it's very nice to know that they're not uncommon to the other things that are happening in other districts. So we're all kind of, doing the same work and going through the same issues over time. So that's nice to know. And then lastly, I just have MCAS testing is still ongoing. We are now doing makeups, and then we'll have the science test later on in the year, but the schools have been going through that. We haven't really had any issues with technology or anything. I think the schools are in a routine with the MCAS testing, and it seems to be going smoothly, so I haven't heard of any issues with that. And then this is just a reminder that there are a few dates down there, highlight dates. I'll try and add more and keep a continuing running list for you guys as we move forward. But again, this Friday, we have the Empty Bowls here, right, happening at the high school, so we look forward to that. A couple save the dates. They're looking at Wednesday, May 10th for Super Team. That'll be held here. And then they're looking at Saturday, May 20th for the prom, which will be at Pleasant Valley. And then Friday, June 9th is graduation. So we're in good shape, and time is going so fast. The school year, the end of the school year is just coming up so quickly. It's usually at 6 o'clock.
It's very helpful to have those dates.
And
I
it's
was
gonna be
putting
at
them in my
Indian
calendar while we were, yeah, exactly.
So, yep.
What's that?
I believe it's going to be at Indian Ranch this year. They are looking off-site because they are getting the modulars, so they have explored with the students and pulled the students, and the majority of them wanted to do Indian Ranch. And it's actually cost savings to the district, because by the time you rent all the chairs and rent everything, it was actually cheaper to do Indian Ranch. So they are working through that and see what that's going to look like.
Oh, that's great.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. More seating,
Yep.
you know, so that's what they're working on.
Wow, that's great. Yep, good deal. Well, thank you for those updates. Are there any questions or comments from the committee for Mrs. Perangeli?
Is
Yep.
empty bowls at 6?
Yes. Yep.
Through the chair,
Yep, Ms. Millett?
I would just like to give kudos out to our principals and staff for getting a lot more things in the Webster Times for the community to see. It's been very noticed. It's awesome. Front page.
They're doing a great job in sending the
are doing a
information
great
over.
job.
Yep.
Great, thanks, Ms. Millett. Anything else for anyone? No. Next on the agenda is the business manager report. Good evening again, Mrs. Perangeli.
Good evening. Put on my other hat now. So, building committee. So April 6th, we had an all-day meeting here. The OPM was here with architect, and the whole entire day was spent with MEP Consulting to review all the systems, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. It was a long day. Mr. Young spent the entire day here answering questions, reviewing information. We've talked about heating systems and plumbing systems, a lot of information coming to us, but it's good information, and the project is really starting to become real quickly. As we move through time, we are really approaching decisions now are being made left and right as we get into, what does a classroom look like? They spent all day in here today going through departments, looking at furniture, different types of things that they're going to want to pick out for their rooms, their needs. Modulars are going to be coming in. We're on schedule for modulars to come in on June 16th. So there'll be some site work ahead of time, which will also help out with graduation and having it off-site because of what's going to be going on here with the construction in the front while they prep that area. And then it's going to be tight, but we're still on schedule for August 17th to have the modulars occupancy in hand so we can move in. That'll give our custodians 2 weeks to really set up the modulars and get them ready for day one, start of school. So it's going to be tight, but I'm confident that we can do it. And I know the guys, they always rally together when in need. So I have no doubt that they would all drop what they're doing and come over to help and make sure we're good to go for the students on the first day of school. We have a building meeting tomorrow night here. We are at the 60% mark, so we'll be getting new updates, cost estimates come in, and see if any value engineering needs to be done, and just get updated on the schedule moving forward. But we are on schedule, and the project is becoming very active. So are there any questions about the project?
Through the chair, I didn't ask this at the last building committee meeting, and I probably should have, and since I'm not going to be there tomorrow night, the modulars, when they get here, they're going to go kind of outside the bus loop, right?
Yeah, in the parking lot where the staff park, inside that parking
Okay.
lot.
So in that walkway, a few years ago, well, many years ago now, some of the kindergarten classes planted trees over there with time capsules. Are those going to be uprooted? I'm just
Where are they? I know we talked about trees and we were going to relocate some of the trees.
Yeah, so they have plaques on them. They're outside the old main entrance where the cafeteria is. They're outside there if you walk across by the teacher's
I think they
parking
took
lot.
pictures of them but the digging's going to be on the other side, so
I was
hopefully,
just
yeah.
wondering.
But that's good to know because I know we've been pointed out of a couple areas that they want to keep, a couple trees that were dedicated on behalf
I
of
just
students.
wanted there to be awareness around it in case they were dug up to just, if they were replanted or the time capsules are buried in there from the kindergarten classes. So I just didn't want that to go unspoken.
Nope, I will make sure that they're aware. I know they took pictures and are aware of some of the stuff, so I'll make sure that we take care of that.
That was back to the Mr. Benacasa days
Ah,
at Park Ave.
okay, all right, that's good. I'll bring that up tomorrow, actually.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next item I have is maintenance. Things are pretty good in the district right now. We're moving along, except for here. We have a leak in our kitchen that's been leaking for a good week now. I thought maybe Al was collecting water I said, are we trying to save water? Watering something out in the yard or something? But it looks like what he's stating is that this building is old, and when they built this, they didn't have a lot of shut-offs in the building. So it's dripping, he can't find a shut-off anywhere to shut it off, so they're actually gonna have to shut water off to the building, to this area completely, to repair it. So they're gonna plan on doing that next week and have them come back to fix that. But other than that, we are in pretty good shape. And then next item I have is the third quarter budget update. We're in April now, so this is our January through March update. We are on track with our budget. Everything looks pretty good. The only real thing I wanted to point out again is our special education tuition lines. And I have that noted in our presentation later at 6:30. When we looked at our budget in January, we were projecting out about a $250,000 savings at that point in tuition, and we have now used that up, so that right now we are breaking even. Our budgeted amount is what we have in tuition, so it's been active, and we're not over budget, we're on budget, so it fluctuates quickly, and you can see what happens in a few months. That's the nature of the beast. We plan, and then sometimes we get fortunate and we have people move out, or, things not really come to fruition, and then sometimes we get move-ins and we take the hit. So that's where we're at now, but the budget's there for your review, and if you have any questions on the budget, I'm happy to answer them. All good? Okay. And then just lastly, under business, our transportation bid is up this year, so I did post that. It is out to bid. Bids should be coming in next week, and I will review them on Thursday. I know bids have been coming in much higher around the state, so, fingers crossed for that. But we did anticipate some increases in transportation, so I'll have more results for you at the next meeting, but they are out to bid. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Prangelly.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the committee? No? Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is the public hearing for the FY 23-24 budget.
We had that posted for 6:30, right?
So we'll wait?
So we need to wait.
Okay,
on that.
well, let's take next item after that, old business, the monthly report on fundraising applications. Just as a reminder, it's the role of the school committee to review fundraising applications, but we don't approve them. The approvals are done at the building level. And it looks like we have one from the high school, and we have one from the middle school. The high school application has to do with a popcorn fundraiser. They're going to be selling bags for $12 to $18. Those sales are going to take place outside of the school building, and they'll be distributed at the end of the school day. And that's going to benefit the class of 2026. And then the other application here is NJHS at the middle school. They're hosting a spring semi-formal for grades 7 and 8. Any questions or comments from the committee about those? All right. I guess we'll keep on moving here. The next item on the agenda under new business is the approval of the job description for the extended day program coordinator.
Yep. So in your packet, you should have the job description. This is a position that we've had in the past. We've already had it. It was supporting our 21st century and our out of school time at Park Ave and the middle school. And when we lost the 21st century funding for that program before COVID, We eliminated this position because that's how it was funded. Now, we're back in the swing of things. We have the 21st century. Our programs are booming, and we're expanding our programs into the high school. So we are want to put this position back in place to get that coordinator, because it takes a lot of time and energy to put out these summer programs and to somebody to oversee them. So that's what this job description is. It was updated to, it used to be K to 6, it was K to 6, and now it's K to 12. We've expanded the grade levels for this person to oversee.
What does that look like, the extended day for the higher grades?
It could, they could be seeing, overseeing the program for, like they're looking at doing some project-based learning, or like an 8th grade to a 9th grade program to support any extra help they might need coming into the 9th grade. That would be held here. We also do the credit recovery program for students. They're looking at changing that. They're looking at making that, it used to run 3 days a week, 5 days. Now they're looking to extend that to 4 or 5 weeks, to take a little longer to complete so they can cover more material. And then we're looking to expand what other programs can we have that would engage kids that we could support. Maybe some additional help with science, or some really project-based learning, to get kids more engaged as we go through Project Lead the Way. We're looking at expanding down into the middle school and having some crossover, so some of those programs could look at that. So,
Great.
yeah, there's a lot of good ideas, but it does take a lot of time and effort to plan that. We have a lot of programming that happens here in the summer. We have some pretty big programming. It's a lot to coordinate. And then you got to take into account that summertime is when our administrators and our staff are using their vacation, because they're here during the school year. They're here all day long. So we encourage them to take their time in the summer and over vacations. So having this coordinator in district, if there are times where something's needed or coverage is needed someplace, we have that person that can go to the building and handle any situation. There's always that point person. So.
That sounds great.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee regarding the job description for the extended day programming coordinator? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the job description as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Lori, would you please poll the committee?
Yes.
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 Yes. With 2 minutes left, I'm going to be ambitious and move on to the next item on the agenda under new business, which is the approval of the job description for the Adult Ed Assistant Director.
Yep, we filled the director position, so we updated, just a couple of minor changes were made in the job description under the position summary. Other than that, everything else is the same. So we're looking to get this approved so we can get the assistant director position posted.
Great. Any questions or comments from the committee regarding this job description for the Adult Ed Assistant Director? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve it as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Lori, would you please poll the committee?
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion carries. So here we have reviewing and signing of warrants, bills, payroll, and vouchers, or the MTA, which is
It
going
is
to take too long.
6:30,
Okay,
so we're right on cue.
sounds good.
Do we have to do anything special for open public hearing? Nope. Okay. So it's 6:30, so being 6:30, I'm going to open the public hearing for our FY24 proposed school budget. Luckily, we just had a trial run with the Finance Committee. We were there right before here to answer any questions that they had. And overall, I think this budget season has been a pretty good and smooth budget season. Overall, we've been all very fortunate that the funding has coming in more than what we anticipated initially, so that always makes it a little bit easier to get through. But I will quickly go through the presentation. So these are instructional priorities that we talked about. This is what drives the work that we do every day here in Webster. Our budget goals for FY24 were to continue to prioritize safety and student learning needs, to continue to improve student programming with a focus on developing strong academic skills in all students and ensuring equitable access. We are also providing ongoing professional development to build internal capacity and sustainability with using research-based curriculum, instruction, and assessment. We've put a lot of effort into our professional development over the years, and we continue to do that to build on our instructional practices. So I'm happy about that. We are also taking a system-wide approach with determining needs and setting our budget priorities, and we continue to work collaboratively with the town manager and the finance committee. We reviewed this slide at our couple meetings ago. Over the years with COVID, we received additional ESSER funding. With that funding, we've added positions to the district. They were academic coaches for all 3 schools. They were resulted in coming out of ESSER funds for FY23 and 24. We had academic interventionists, counselors at both Park Ave and Middle School. We had a nurse assistant, ELL teachers at Park Ave and the high school. We had an interim dean, special education teachers at Park Ave and Webster Middle School, our building-based subs, a re-engagement specialist, and a coordinator of equity and inclusion. One of the ELL teachers we did put in the LEA budget for FY24 as a high need because of our numbers warranted that. We took a look at our historical budget over the years. You can see we were averaging about a 3 or 4% increase back to 18. And then in FY21, the school district ended up taking a reduction in our budget because we knew we were having the ESSER funds and the town was in need of support. So we stepped back and took less funding so they could take care of the positions that they needed in a collaborative way, knowing that we were going to have the ESSER money that we could rely on. And it was agreed upon at that time that over time, the school department would start building those positions back into the budget, so we were not going to lose any positions. We were just going to shift the funding sources. So that's what we did in FY22. We started building those positions back in and then completed that for our FY23 year of positions that were removed. So our first draft budget on January 10th represented a 5.17% increase of $1.2 million. At this point in time, we did not have our state aid numbers. They were coming out later because of the change in leadership at the state level. So we were anticipating, we knew we were going to get an increase, we just didn't know how much. Because they have implemented the new Chapter 70 formula across the state. They were in year 2 of 6 of that. It's going to be phased in over 6 years. In the new FY24 budget, we had requested some additional staff. We've requested a 0.5 administrative assistant, a library media specialist, and a family liaison at Park Ave. At Webster Middle School, we've requested a library media specialist, a behavior interventionist, and an ABA teacher, a substantially separate program. So this is a mix of funding. Some positions are coming from LEA, which are noted, and others are coming from ESSER. At the high school, we asked for a math coach, but this is actually not a new position. This is replacing an existing position, so it's not new to the district. It's just a new position. And then we had, that didn't make any sense what I just said. Not a new position, but it's a new position. So it is a new position, but not new to the district, I should say that. And then under our district level, we had an assistant director of student support services and equity. That is replacing a position that we had also in ESSER funds of a director coordinator of equity. Then we got our funding sources from the state in March, early March. So we were very pleased that the Chapter 70 numbers came in much higher than anticipated. So working with the town and reviewing our agreement of a 70-30 split, we received an additional $616,339. We then went back and took a look at our budget after we received that number to see what we wanted to prioritize. That $616,000 increase put us at a $1.8 million increase, which represented a 7.73%. And that's not uncommon across the state with the new formula. There are many districts that are seeing high percentage increases. So as a DL team, as a leadership team, we went back and we spent a good morning discussing the district needs and priorities and what we wanted to focus on. And we moved some of those positions back into the LEA from ESSER that we felt were priorities and helped supported our initiatives and our goals. And those positions were the academic coaches, which we moved to LEA, counselor for the middle school into LEA, the Park Ave ELL teacher, special education teachers at Park Ave and Webster Middle School, and the re-engagement specialists is now in the LEA. And, you know, we're hoping that focus will be on our dropouts and our help support our graduation and re-engaging those kids and keep them in district. I put in here the circuit breaker slide so you could see. I thought it was important to note that how fluid tuition can be within our enrollment up and down. This was done in January with our enrollment. We had a sped projection at that point where Miss Barris, we went through a student by student and outlined who was going to be here, and we knew who was going out. And at that point, we showed a $283,000 savings in our budget. And when we looked at those numbers in your Q3 update, I made a note for you in pen. You could see where we're right now at that money we budgeted for circuit breaker. So we're at that point, so we're not showing that surplus any longer. Because our tuition numbers have gone up over the years and the additional funding that we're getting from transportation, our circuit breaker numbers did go up. So we did receive $904,000 in circuit breaker this year. So we will have money to carry over into next year. And then we talked about our school choice numbers. In district, we've used school choice over the years to offset our ABA tutors and to also help with the technology. That's how we've been dealing with our recycle for our Chromebooks. Every year we replace Chromebooks in the district for a few grade levels, and we take the funding out of here. But as you can see, we're taking in much less than we're spending. So this is not a sustainable model. We're going to have to look at really shifting away from this and building that into our local budget to be able to sustain the technology upkeep and make sure that we're budgeting that appropriately. So our town meeting request on May 8th for FY24 is $25,929,422. What represents a $1.861,590 million increase at a 7.73% increase. And I'm happy to say that we are all on the same page with our town partners as far as the budget goes. We've worked collaboratively to work together with our shared costs, which would be our insurances and our retirements and things like that, that we know come off the top, and then we work to break it out evenly. So I think overall it was a positive budget year, and we're in good shape.
Thank you, Mrs. Perangeli.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee about this presentation?
Through the chair.
Mr. Anamopoulos?
I just want to say thank you for putting together this budget this year. I also just want to say thank you to the town accountant, the town administrator, but also to just the town in general. I mean, just looking at the historical view here, we're averaging probably somewhere above 4% increases since that time, including that decrease in 21. I mean, just looking at the local news of towns around our area, which are having difficulty, ultimately just supporting slight increases in the budget, I just think it's important to ultimately acknowledge that the town has been very supportive of the school system for 5 or 6 years at this point. It's ultimately been helpful in the path the school's taken moving forward.
I agree, and I said the same thing at our Finance Committee meeting before we came here. We're very fortunate to have such a collaborative working relationship, and they understand the needs of the school and support the school. As we understand the needs of the community, there's times where we have to, give back. And we do look, when we have savings, of giving back to the town, because that ultimately is going to help us in the long run. So it has to be a collaborative relationship, and it's working really well, and I couldn't be more pleased. And the community does support our schools. We have a project to show for that ongoing right now. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you both. Great points. Any other comments or questions from the committee? No? Great. Well, great presentation. We're fortunate to have the relationships and as Mr. Adamopoulos pointed out, the support across town. So good news for the whole school community and the whole community in general. Moving on, the next item on the agenda under new business is the discussion on the MTA recommended Thrive Act.
Yep, I believe you should have all received a letter from the MTA. I know it was sent to you also, Ms. Millette, and from the MTA, and they reached out to me to bring this to you and ask for your support. What it is they are looking to address some issues from MCAS. So one of the requirements of MCAS is, of course, you need to pass MCAS for your graduation. They are looking to eliminate that requirement, and they are also looking to eliminate the punitive damages that come along to districts if you are underperforming and not meeting that benchmark. So the MTA rep came to our schools. He asked to sit at the lunchroom and teachers could come in and sign. So you have copies of that there, and they are looking for the district to come up and write a letter on behalf, the school committee to write a letter on behalf if they are in support of this legislation. Yeah, I think they would like a discussion and maybe a letter in support of this if the committee is willing, that they can submit in on behalf of the district. So, I mean, I can answer any questions. I did talk with the leadership here. And I think everybody's kind of in agreement that although we feel there is an assessment need, there is a need for assessment and accountability, that it weighs heavily on the districts to always have that hanging over your head of, the state coming in and taking you over, a potential loss of funding. And it also makes it difficult for some of our struggling kids who, who sometimes are our highest need kids or our special education students, having difficulty with passing the MCAS and getting frustrated and maybe dropping out because they can't be successful with that test. They might have the credits to graduate, they might have the coursework that they need, but they struggle with the MCAS test. And the process to get a certificate of attainment or something is very challenging and difficult. So I think all administrators felt like that they would support this. Although they're just saying, the MCAS is not something that should just be thrown out. We all believe that the MCAS is something that, is useful in its way. It gives us data about where the district is at that we can use, in a different way, that it's not like getting a benchmark that we can look at currently and see where we're going. It gives us a historical view, because MCAS is always behind, right? So this year's MCAS we're not going to get until next year. But it assesses where we are as a district as a whole, and it drives the work that we need to do. So it is a useful tool for the district. But I think just having the punitive side of that gone and maybe the graduation requirement lifted would help many of our students. I don't know if you want to add anything.
I would just add that, looking at it from the special education lens, and as you know, the graduation rate, cohort graduation rate, 4-year and 5-year has been, if impacted because of the number of students that are high needs that do end up dropping out. And that is the subgroup that, we've struggled with. I think that this definitely would help with that issue. It's not the only problem related to our dropout rate, but I do think that it, as Mrs. Perangeli just said, would give us an opportunity or give kids an opportunity to not feel like that weight on their shoulders. Everyone still has to take the test, but it's not, a done deal if they don't pass it and, after several times. So, yeah, and for a lot of our kids, it's very impactful to have to take an assessment and then, in the end, sometimes end up having to submit, a competency portfolio review and have that reviewed. And, it's doable for a lot of kids, but I think, it just adds that much more pressure on them when they're trying to partake in their typical day-to-day classes. So, yeah, I think, I personally support it. I do think that it's still important to have measures that we can use to drive some of, the decision-making in terms of instruction. We still have to have something that, allows us to have that information and whether we're meeting the mark or not. But, yeah, I think that that's something, that's what the whole, vote is for, is, the act is for reducing that punitive impact.
Through
Through the chair.
sorry.
I don't know who said something first, so I'll leave it to you to have your manners and.
My biggest concern that came into my head when this was brought to my attention was exactly what Mrs. Barris and Mrs. Perangeli were talking about, and that is how this, over the years, has affected our dropout rate. When we have students who are passing their courses but can't pass one test, and they can't get a diploma, and what that does to their whole lives. The other part of this, too, is they're asking the state to re-look at the test itself, to look at the MCAS test, and kind of revamp it, and really evaluate it and see what changes could be made. It's not asking to get rid of it. It's asking them to work on a better assessment that is reasonable for all and a better way to give it. But overall, that's my biggest concern. All these students that have dropped out, and some of them are not going to go for their GED. They're not going to. They give up. And that needs to be changed.
Thank you, Ms. Millett. Ms. Blythe, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes, so I agree with you, Ms. Millett, that it adds another level of pressure. There are many students that are very intelligent and they do just fine in school, but they don't do that well on any standardized testing. My concern, I guess, or my question is, do we have any guardrails in place or any thoughts of what may take the place of the MCAS requirement? I mean, I still do feel like there needs to be some sort of proof, right, that the students are learning, the teachers are teaching appropriately. so I guess the core competencies, right? And I guess the second part of that is, would that include, history? So it's not just math, English, and science, right? Is history as well. So I'm just kind of curious if any discussion has been happening around what may replace this.
Well, I think they're still not looking to get rid of the MCAS. They still want the assessment, but students also have to have the graduation requirements. They still have to pass all their courses, which still have to be taught to the state standards. So we still have internally the courses that need to be taught: history, science, English, math. They're getting all the core subjects. So I don't think they're not talking about eliminating the assessment. It's it's where you struggle with the accountability, right? That's where we get into question. Right now, with the accountability, you look at punitive damages, and the students are not having the ability, who are struggling. It's very difficult for them to get their diploma and that impact. So, I mean, I think we all understand that there is an assessment. It's here to stay. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just the results. What's the impact of that?
Right. And to Ms. Barris's point, the impact to subgroups is huge. I mean, that's the first thing that I thought of, is to hold specific subgroups to the same accountability. I don't agree with that. So, I do like the idea of the teachers not teaching to the test, because I feel like that will bring back a different perspective on learning and what happens in the classroom.
But I think that's a great question. What is the accountability? So,
Right. I mean, there still needs to be accountability, but what does that look like?
right.
My question.
I think also the new scheduling and at the high school and the proposals of helping those students get to where they need to be is going to be a great first step towards this
Great.
and helping them get to where they're supposed to be. So I think that is definitely putting us in the right direction.
Mr.
Through
Adamopoulos?
the chair. So I think everyone's kind of just reiterating everything, but, having the test and getting that data collection is obviously going to be very important moving forward. But prior to 2002, we were graduating kids on a yearly basis without forcing them to have to pass this test, and that was statewide. So there was no issue of saying, well, everyone before 2002 wasn't being properly educated, and therefore their education is different than what's gone on since then. I think the MCAS as a whole has been disproportionately impacting different districts. A district like ours is being held to the same standard as a district that has no demographics matching up to what we're held at, but we're required to ultimately have the same criteria and meet those. And lastly, I just think that if this passes, we're giving teachers a lot more freedom about how they're going to go about teaching and not having to go back to teaching to the specific test. And I think that teaching to the test has been absolutely horrible for the education in the state as a whole, because it's taken away how teachers can go about and the freedom that they have inside their own classroom. They have to be accountable to meet certain standards, but saying this is exactly what has to happen and this is what's on the test and make sure they know this has been detrimental to students throughout the whole state. So me personally, I fully support this. I think it's a great idea to try to go back to that pre-2002 level.
Thank you, Mr. Adamopoulos. Any other discussion about this?
Through the chair, I just wanted to add that when MCAS originally started, we were compared to our kind of community, and that's what they would do. They grouped us according to similar communities, and then it changed, throwing everybody in the same pot, which it's just not right.
Well, I think just to go off of that, I have a firm belief that, you know, there's an unlimited amount of potential for all kids, regardless of, you know, their station in life where they start out. But at the same time, when a standardized test like this is implemented across the board with very little room for accommodations and things that we would naturally give in the rest of the world, it does have a disparate impact on certain groups of people, for sure. One observation that I have, and this is maybe, I don't know. When we were talking about iReady data, one of the comments that was made regarding the iReady, the results of the iReady testing were kids don't take it seriously because it doesn't count for anything, and therefore this is not an accurate representation of their knowledge. So when we take away, and you know, I'm not suggesting that I don't support this, but I want to just bring up the fact that if we take away any sort of ownership or accountability of a student's performance on any type of test, whether it be a statewide standardized test or a school-wide assessment, it sounds like our data doesn't have integrity. So I wonder how we would accommodate for that or, you know, be planful about that.
A valid point. I don't have the answer for you.
I think part of that has to be taking a look at how it's presented. Because I have a couple of former students I see online that are teachers now. And the way they are presented MCAS to their students is phenomenal. That they are going to take it seriously. But what ended up happening and happens is taught to the test. It was analyze these questions now, and what do you need to teach? And then that's going backwards. It's not being proactive.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not being proactive at all. And that's what we need to look at. But instilling that desire or need that this is important for them can be done. It just needs to be looked at to see maybe how other schools do it.
And to take that a step further, if that can be done for MCAS, it can be done for iReady.
Yeah, exactly.
So if there is a desire to support this initiative, I'll entertain a motion to support it, but that depends on the desire of the committee, so. Okay. So would we vote at a future meeting?
We could put a letter together, maybe try and draft something and bring it to the
To the
next committee.
meeting? Would the desire of the committee be to put together a letter of support for this initiative? And then discuss it further when all of the members are present and,
I would support that.
I would also.
okay, okay. And I guess really that concludes the discussion. There's no vote necessary there. All right, great. The next item on the agenda is the review, transfer, signing of warrants, bills, payroll, and vouchers.
Oh, and they're in my office. Hold on a second.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Lori, would you please pull the committee?
Yes.
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 Yes, meeting adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.